Have your return windows ended yet? Because iPhone 16 series across the board has been somewhat of a letdown, at least for me with the 16 Pro, and camera control is really not all it's cracked up to be. Apple Intelligence still isn't out yet, and even when it does launch, it's not going to be as good as we'd all like. But the good news is a better iPhone, a more interesting iPhone that will probably get my crown for best iPhone of 2025 is actually just a few months away. You won't have to wait a year for it, because it sounds like the iPhone SE4 is going to be a lot more interesting than we initially thought. Let's begin. Thanks to questionable leaker Sonny Dickinson, we now actually see some case manufacturers prepping for the launch of the SE4, which is supposed to be in spring of next year, so that could be at a March event, it could be a site refresh, but still March, which is only 5-ish months away from now, and the reason you can tell these cases are a little bit different and weirder, even though they kind of look like generic iPhone 5 4 cases we've all seen a million times, is that the camera cutout has more of the iPhone 7 style landscape camera cutout. Don't get your hopes up. I don't think that necessarily means it's a dual camera. It's probably similar to the existing camera bump on the SE3. You're just going to have a lens on one side and the flash on the other, but the interesting detail is that it's still squared off. And of course, ever since Apple has started making more squared off iPhones again, like the 12 and later, those had more square camera bumps, whereas this one does not, of course. So that's why we're believing that this is an unreleased iPhone model case that he has access to for some reason. And zooming in on the volume controls, we can also see that there's not a button over the top of the volume rocker. No, it looks like a straight up cutout, which implies SE4, maybe as we're getting closer to launch, has more of a design lock, and it won't have an action button. So for those of you out there who are sick of Apple adding more and more buttons to the iPhone, the SE, while it is technically removing the home button that it's had for so many years, it isn't replacing it with more remappable buttons on the outside. So if you like having a ringer switch, the SE4 might be a bit more traditional in that way. But that's not the most interesting part that I'm trying to get more hyped about. The more interesting thing comes down to some sources that have contacted 9to5Mac telling us that the SE4 may actually be the first ever iPhone with an Apple-designed 5G modem from the ground up. All those years ago, way back in 2019, Apple actually acquired all of Intel's modem business, and they've been working behind the scenes for many years now on developing their own custom in-house designed 5G chip that would not just be for cellular connectivity, but this singular chip could cover everything between your 5G connection, your Wi-Fi, your Bluetooth, your GPS, and we all remember how well it went when Apple stopped using Intel-designed processors to then their own in-house design. So maybe, it took half a decade to get the Intel team on board with Apple's goals and missions, but having an Apple-designed chip from the ground up should mean far better energy efficiency, and perhaps having this in-house designed modem is going to result in better battery life, or at least less overheating on this phone, which feels like is getting worse and worse every year. I've still had overheating issues on my 16 Pro, even though they claimed that it's supposed to have better thermals. My friend Randy had issues with his regular iPhone 16 in ultramarine, with maybe the only potential downside of this Apple design modem being that it doesn't support the millimeter wave 5G wavelengths, which I feel like a lot of people never utilize anyway. Even if you're lucky enough to get close to a 5G tower and get ultra wideband, what are you doing on your phone that actually constitutes needing like 1 gigabit per second? Like, most people are just scrolling through social media. It's not that important. I think what's far more important is having better battery life and the phone running cooler, preserves the battery and also lets the battery last longer. But because this is an SE and it's supposed to be cheaper, they might end up just shrinking the overall battery capacity, because as we know, it's supposed to be lower priced than the iPhone 16 and probably even the recently discounted iPhone 15. So we don't know if it's going to be sitting around a $500 price or maybe $550, but still, it'll be cheaper than buying an iPhone 15 with one camera on the back, but supposedly using that same amazing sensor, the 48 megapixel sensor that's found on the iPhone 15 series, and the only compromise with the camera is, okay, there's no more ultra wide. Sorry for all those crazy teens out there that like taking the 0.5x face pictures that make you look crazy, but I think the more impressive thing about the SE4 is it's just going to be a more affordable iPhone that works and probably has some good longevity, because all the rumors are saying it's going to have the same chip as the iPhone 16 series, an A18 chip with 8 gigabytes of memory, which normally I'm not a big fan of, like, we need more memory in our phones, but now with Apple requiring more and more memory for more of these Siri improvements and Apple Intelligence features, I think that will help a lot with the longevity of the phone, even though it's at a lower price. And of course, my favorite feature that is finally coming to the SE4, shout out to the European Union for being epic about this, USB-C is finally going to be on a cheaper iPhone. You won't have to pay a super premium price in order to get the better port that's bilateral and reversible and works with all kinds of different accessories. And I personally believe the iPhone SE4 is going to kill off the iPhone 14 a little prematurely. So the 14 and 14 Plus will probably get wiped off the face of the website. Thank you, those phones suck. And the SE4 will now sit in its place. So the new iPhone lineup next spring is going to start off with like a $499 SE4 and then a $699 iPhone 15 and $799 iPhone 16, and you know the rest. All of them will have USB-C, and most of them will have Apple Intelligence, with the exception of the iPhone 15, which will have a worse chip than the SE4. But don't worry, the iPhone 15 still gets a few advantages by having Dynamic Island, which is also not supposed to come to the SE4. It'll just have a notch, which begs the question, when you activate Apple Intelligence and you get the pretty colors that go around the display, will they go behind the notch, or will the pretty colors go around the notch? I don't know. I guess whatever it does on the MacBook Pros. I haven't tried that yet. Do you know what happens? Overall, though, it just sounds like a really simple, like, affordable iPhone for the masses. It'll have a 6.1-inch OLED display because it's basically being built on the same design platform as the iPhone 14. Ringer switch, but just one camera on the back, but still a 48 megapixel sensor, which is pretty good. A notch design on the front, probably reminiscent of the, thinner iPhone 14 and 13 notch. Probably just come in 3 colors, although Apple hasn't released a red iPhone in over 2 years. Can they please bring that back for the SE4? That would be sick. That would be dope. And it would just have a ringer switch, but still 8 gigs of RAM and an A18 chip. This thing is going to last a while, not cost you too much. And I think that's what the everyday consumer truly, honestly needs. They don't need camera control. They don't need titanium. They don't need a 5x tetra prism lens. Everybody's just pinching to zoom anyway and cropping on their main sensor. This one won't have any of that lens switcheroo with the macro when you hold the phone too close and everything. No, it'll just work, and it'll have decent battery life and a new Apple design chip, which should hopefully keep the phone running cool. And there's like a ton of people in my personal life that I'm definitely going to recommend buy the SE4. Who cares if it doesn't have ProMotion? It's just a phone. It's supposed to work, and I think that immediately makes it far more interesting than trying to get hyped about the iPhone 17 series. Like, ooh, there's the thinner one, and ooh, ProMotion is now on a slightly cheaper model. Who cares? If you care about ProMotion, you should have just bought a 15 Pro refurbished. But what do you guys think of the leaks for the SE4? Are you getting more excited about it now? Or are you more disappointed that Apple is officially departing from the small phone business? The real truth is the other flagship iPhones are just going to get so big that the 6.1-inch SE4 is going to feel small and portable. It's a sad world we're living in, but thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you all in the next one.